Card King, here I come. Hello, sports fans, sports collectors, and all hobbyists. Welcome to the Card King Sports and Variety Show. I am your host, the Catman, Brian Cataquet, a.k.a. the Card King. We are live on ABC's KMET 1490 AM.com. Your number one spot right here for news and talk on the West Coast. I thank everyone for tuning in this morning. On the telephone line, I welcome in a member of the 1970 National League Baseball All-Star team. He played from 69 to 75 for the Dodgers, Angels, Phillies, Cubs, and Oakland. I welcome in Billy Grabarkewitz. Billy, great to have you on.
Good morning. Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
My pleasure. You know, Billy, reading up on your career, it's a miracle how things work out. Your boyhood idols were Reese and Duke Snider, and amazingly, you get to play a future role in the Dodgers organization. How about that?
That was amazing because as a kid, when I was 8, 9 years old, my heroes were Peter Reese, Gil Hodges, Duke Snider, of course the other Dodgers too, but those were my three favorites, and I got to know all of them well later.
Absolutely, and you know, I want to touch on your 1970 year because I don't think there are many players who had the offensive stats that you put up the first half of the 1970 season. It's really amazing. I want to touch upon that. But let's talk about your first year in pro ball. It was 1966. You were drafted in the June draft, I believe. How did the Dodgers hear about you?
From a scout in San Antonio. They called him the one-armed bandit. I forgot what his name was, Hugh something. It was really strange because that year the Atlanta Braves and Detroit Tigers had already approached me and told me that they were going to draft me very high. And I had told both of them that they were going to waste their draft choice because I was staying in school. And I said that for a purpose. When I talked to the Dodgers, I told them I was going to tell everybody else I was going to stay in school because I said, I want to make sure you draft me. Well, that hurt me in the long run because it put me way down the ladder because they knew I was not going to sign with anybody else. But I ended up turning down probably a lot more money with Detroit and Atlanta. But it turned out to be the right move because when I did get drafted by the Dodgers, I can't remember if I was the 8th, 9th, 10th round pick, which, by the way, Bill Russell and Ted Sizemore, the three of us were almost like 8, 9, and 10. The first 7 picks that year never made it to the major leagues. And then, of course, the next couple of years, every one of their picks made it to the major leagues.
Now you were assigned to Tri-City, the Adams team in the Northwest League, and the manager was Duke Snider. I mean that's incredible. How is Duke Snider as a manager?
Well, it was really strange because I was really looking forward to meeting him. And when I reported, I knocked on his hotel room, and he came to the door, and I could tell by his hair and how he was dressed that he was asleep. And he said, "What the hell do you want?" And I'm checking in, Mr. Snider. And it was really funny. That was the way we got started. But he was really a great manager. Give you, for instance, he gave you confidence as a hitter. There were many times when I was batting leadoff, I would turn around and look down to him at third base on like a 2-0 count or 3-1. And one time he just grabbed me and says, "You ever look down at me again, I'll give you the take sign. You're here to hit the ball. Don't ever look at me to get a take sign. Don't you ever turn around and look at me again." And he made you a positive, aggressive hitter, which was the way he was. That was great. I learned a lot from him.
Wow. And then, I'm looking at your stats here. So your first year in pro ball was 66. Your first game in the majors, I believe, came in 69. Take us back, if you can, to your major league debut, if you recall it well. How nervous were you? How excited were you? Was it thrilling, etc.?
Well, it was extremely excited. I was extremely nervous. I had been with the team, and we were in Hawaii, and Tommy Lasorda was a manager. And he called me right after a game and said, "The Dodgers just called you up, so you need to get on a plane and get there." So I ended up getting in L.A. around 2 o'clock in the morning. Didn't get to the hotel till probably 3:34. I didn't have a lot of money on me. I was supposed to take care of everything. I don't know how I even paid for the cab ride. And they had a hotel for me to check in. I checked in. And then I got a wake-up call like 4 hours later saying that I needed to come out early for batting practice that day. That's a good and a bad. The bad was the hitting coach was Dixie Walker, who I still consider probably the worst hitting coach in baseball.
Really?
I've been 400 and having a great minor league season and the minor league season before. Dixie has never seen me play a game. I walk out to take batting practice, and the first thing he does is ask to see my bat. He said, "You're not going to use that bat." And he turns around and gives me a huge bat. He says, "I want you to choke up on this thing." And it was like a telephone pole. Real big bat, and he wanted me to choke up 6 inches. He said, "I want you to hit like Nellie Fox."
Huh.
And I said, "You're kidding." So, hey, they said, "I'm in the major leagues. You need to listen to the coaches and the manager." Well, the manager was great to listen to. The hitting coach was not. And so I took all the batting practice. I hadn't slept at all. And they said, "You're playing tonight." I go up to home plate, and I am shaking like a leaf. And I'm still trying to remember the umpire's name. My memory's not real good right now. I walk up to home, and he looks at me and says, "Are you okay?" And I said, "No." And anyway, I made it through the game. I think the first time up I hit a line drive to the third baseman, struck out, and grounded out. So I went 0 for 3, and I was really dead tired. But I was so nervous. I remember I was just shaking like a leaf when I was hitting. That was my first game.
And Billy, the 69 Dodgers, I mean, the manager there was Walter Alston. Was he a good manager? Did he teach you a lot? Did you like him?
I liked him personally because as a manager, what I liked best about him was 10 minutes or 15 minutes after a game, you could talk to him and you didn't know if we'd won or lost. I liked that even keel. He wasn't upset. He didn't get overjoyed. Hey, we have another game tomorrow. That's over. Whereas I've seen managers that get really upset. They upset their players for a long time because they're so mad after the game. Walter Alston was never mad after a game. I never saw him disturbed or where it bothered him. The next day, it was a new day. But he was so different from my other coaches, the managers, in that all my other managers, you wanted to be an aggressive hitter. With Walter Alston, he wanted you to take strikes. He wanted you to take a lot of pitches. And that doesn't help strikeouts when you're taking a lot of pitches. But he was a good manager. He got a little losing his mind a little bit as far as memory later on, but he was a good manager. But he always had, other than the hitting coach, he always had great coaches around him. I mean, really good coaches. And that always helped.
Yeah, and you played for Alston for a few years. Other notable stars on that team, I think it was Drysdale's last year. How was being a teammate of Don Drysdale? Did he take you in?
Oh, that was great because Pee Wee Reese had told him to take me under his wing the first year. And Drysdale came up to him and said, Pee Wee says, "I need to take care of you the first year and make sure you're okay." And the problem was I couldn't drink as much as Drysdale. And he was really great. He would take me to places, and I just finally realized I can't drink 1/3 of how much you can. But Drysdale was a great as far as talking to and learning things. He was really good, as was another player on the team I got to play with who I was always proud of was Maury Wills. Wills got mad at me one game in St. Louis. I was the star of the game, and I was on the Cardinal radio after the game, which was pumped into the Dodger clubhouse, and they asked me who my heroes were as a kid, and I said, well, it was Pee Wee Reese when I was in Little League. When I was in junior high, it was Maury Wills. And afterwards, I came in there, and Maury Wills is sitting next to my locker with his arms crossed, looking at me really upset. He said, "You couldn't have said high school or college. No, you had to say junior high. You're making me old, Bill. You're making me old."
We're talking with Billy Grabarkewitz. He played for the 1960s and 70s, infielder for the Dodgers, Angels, Phillies, Cubs, A's. He's with us on the telephone line. Billy, 1970, I mean, the first half of the season, I mean, it's in the record books because looking at these statistics, I mean, your average on balls in play for the first half of the season since 1947, I looked this up, since 1947, you had a batting average of nearly 500. I believe it was 470. I mean, imagine if you played that entire season. I mean, it would have been scary.
Well, there was a reason, and a sad reason, that changed after the All-Star game. Now just imagine this. I am, with my batting average that year, I'm around 360. I come back from the All-Star game, and Al Campana says, Bill, Dixie Walker wants to help you hit more, so you need to go down for extra batting practice before the game today. And again, I walk out there, and Dixie Walker, first thing, Bill, you need to get rid of this bat. You're striking out too much. We don't want you using this bat anymore. Use this big bat again. He gave me the same bat from the year before. And he said, you have to use it. And Campanis told me, you have to use that and listen to Dixie. Well, I proceeded to then almost probably lead the league in grounding out second base and shortstop on ground balls. And plus, Alston was a big believer in taking strikes. And I got to the point where sometimes leading off or one time batting third, where we're playing against Phil Necro in Atlanta, and Alston tells me before the game, he says, maybe you need to quit taking so many strikes. You need to be more aggressive again like you were before. So I come up in the first inning, and Necro's pitching, and there's nobody on base. I'm the third batter. First two pitches, knuckleballs, both balls. And Danny Goodman, not Danny Goodman, Danny, our third base coach, who was with the Phillies. Well, anyway, he turns around and gives me the take sign. I know Necro's going to throw a straight fastball now. Okay, I got to take it. Strike one. So then the next pitch, knuckleball, ball three. Oh, I'm going to get to hit his fastball again. I'm really looking forward to this. When Danny Ozark yells at me down third base. Look at him. He's giving me the take again. What? Score is nothing. Okay. He, of course, throws that mediocre fastball right down the middle. Strike two. Next pitch, 3-2. He throws me a knuckleball again. I swing and miss. The ball catcher missed it. It hit the umpire, and I end up getting thrown out at first. And I walk back to the dugout, and Alston's shaking his head. And I'm thinking, why do you have me taking when I know I'm getting fastballs? Because that was really Alston's way of thinking. Danny Ozark told me later, because prior to the earlier years when Alston was managing, they never scored many runs, so he always believed everybody could walk. And that was probably the biggest detriment to Alston, was believing too much in walking rather than being aggressive in hitting, which when Tommy Lasorda came along, hey, they were hitting. That's the way you got to be. But just imagine you're doing that well at the midpoint of the season, and I'm leading the team in home runs, and the hitting coach says, Bill, you need to just start choking up and just hitting the ground balls. You can beat them out as fast as you can. Forget about swinging hard. It helped my strikeouts, but unfortunately my batting average dropped to hit about 120 the rest of the way until I finally said, I'm going back to my old bat. I don't care. That wouldn't happen today. No hitting coach would ever do that. Show you how bad I think that Dixie Walker was. One of the best hitters I remember on our team during the time I was with the Dodgers was when Bill Buckner was there. Bill Buckner was an outstanding hitter. He was, to me, he was as good as almost Clemente. And I remember one time Dixie Walker came up to him in batting practice and told him something, and Buckner ran at him, yelling at him, said, don't you ever say anything to me. You've screwed up everybody you've ever worked with. You stay the hell away from me. And you know what? He did. And Buckner was a really good hitter. I wish I would have said the same thing to Dixie.
And, you know, Billy, now that I have you on, I think it's worth noting, because I don't think many people realize what a solid contact hitter you were. I mean, the website SABR, Society for American Baseball Research, they call you a master of the one-liner. But I did the math on this. 1970, in 83 games, you batted .341. You had an on-base percentage of .445. You had an OPS of .164. That put you batted over Frank Robinson. You shared the top 4 list with Tony Perez and Roberto Clemente in batting average the first half of the 1970 season. I mean, that speaks for itself. Those are facts.
Well, I thank you for that, and I would just wish Dixie Walker would have understood that, but unfortunately him and Al Campanis did not. Now, you talk about my strikeouts. See, you always got to remember Ted Williams used to have a theory. If you're fooled on the first pitch, take it. If you're fooled on the second pitch, take it. Well, I just carry that theory one step further.
And, of course, 1970, you make it to the National League All-Star team, and you had a key hit that game, I believe.
I did. It was in, I think, the 12th inning. The score was tied, I think, 3-3 or 2-2 or something like that. And it was really funny. There were 2 outs, and Pete Rose was the hitter, and I was on the on-deck circle. Pete Rose started up there, came back, and he tells me, he says, Bill, I'm going to hit a double, and you're going to knock me in, and we're going to win in famous fashion. Really? Okay. He gets up there, but he didn't hit a double. He didn't keep his promise. He only hit a single. Well, I then got a single. And that led to the Jim Hickman getting the 3rd hit with the major collision with Ray Fosse at home plate that basically, for all intents and purposes, ruined Fosse's career thereafter. I was a good friend of Ray, and the damage done to his shoulder, he never was a pull hitter after that and lost a lot of his power from that collision with Pete Rose.
Yeah, I mean, no doubt about it. You got that key hit. That's in the record books, no doubt about it. Now, 73, you're playing for the Angels. How is that transition? Now, your teammate was Nolan Ryan. And, how is Nolan Ryan? How is that transition for you?
Well, it was totally different. You go from the Dodgers, where our attendance was sky high, and the Angels' attendance was about a third or a fourth of it. So it was different playing there. But Nolan Ryan, playing with him, because I'd played against him so many times, all the way going back to high school, watching him pitch, he just kept getting better and better. I don't know if you know the story that I told about him once. When 1970, he hit me, I think it was to lead off the game, and Jerry Grody was their catcher. And Nolan Ryan hit me with a fastball flush on my left shoulder. The ball went 2 feet in front of the plate when he hit me. And Jerry Grody, the catcher, who's I played against since high school, says, "Oh, Bill, that had to hurt. That had to hurt. You're going to cry. You're going to cry." And, of course, there's no crying in baseball. So I said, "No, I'm not. No, I'm not." So I start walking to first base, and I get to first base, and Jim Gilliam, our coach, says, "Are you okay?" And I said, "No, I can't feel my arm." And I can't remember the first baseman for the Mets. He's laughing. And I start to take a lead off first, and I come back, and Gilliam says, "You okay?" I said, "No, I still can't feel my arm." Well, we ended up beating Nolan. I think it was like 2-1 that day. And this is the true story. Paul Harvey told this story. After the game, I had to ice my arm down, and Nolan Ryan had to ice his shoulder down like most pitchers. And as it turns out, we're about the last 2 players to leave our clubhouses, and we go up in this one big elevator behind Dodger Stadium, behind home plate, together. He's going to get off at one floor where their team bus is, and I'm going to get off at another floor where my car is. And when I got on the elevator and he got on, he looked at me, and again, we've known each other since high school. He walks over to me, and there's only one other person in there, the elevator guy running the elevator. He walked over to me and said, "They said to pitch you close. Are you okay?" And I said, No, I'm not. My arm hurts." And I said, "Nolan, listen to me carefully. You keep throwing that hard, you're going to hurt your arm and shorten your career." And, 20 years later, I was right.
Huh. Wow. Unbelievable. And then you go to Philadelphia. I mean, now this is a major transition from the West Coast to the East Coast in 73, 74. You're in Philly. Did you like Philadelphia?
Not really. I really liked California, and I liked Texas. Philadelphia had some strange fans. They had real good fans, and they had fans that I think just were mean. Back then. They're probably not like that anymore. But they really demanded you win, and when you didn't, you might as well have been playing on the road. They were not real nice.
And during that time, a young Mike Schmidt came up. How was playing with Mike Schmidt? Was he incredible even early on, that young?
Yeah, he really was. He was my last roommate.
Oh, really?
And we roomed together for 2 nights, and that's when I told the traveling secretary, I said, I'll pay for my own room. I want to just room by myself now. When Mike came up, I was the odd man of the players not having a roommate, so they put him in with me for those 2 nights. But I said after 2 nights with him, after 2 nights, no, I'm not going to do this.
Yeah,
Mike,
and then
though,
70.
Mike turned out to be one of the best players that I played with to go on and do what he did. I mean, that's amazing. He became a really great third baseman defensively, as well as an offensive power.
I mean, tremendous hitter. And then 74, you're on the Chicago Cubs roster, playing at Wrigley Field. Did you enjoy it?
I loved Wrigley Field. I always liked playing in Chicago. I personally enjoyed playing more against the Cubs than on the Cubs. And when I was with the Cubs, we just had a terrible bullpen. And you get so tired of, and our pitching staff, other than Bert Hooton and a couple of others, we did have 2 or 3 good ones, but you were always playing from behind. After it seemed like the second inning, third inning, you were already down 3 or 4 runs. But they had so many good fans in Chicago. The fans were really, really good. And when Mike Marshall took over, that was, to me, the downfall of the Cubs when he became manager.
And then, Billy, 75, you joined Reggie Jackson's Oakland A's. Now, let me ask you, was Reggie Jackson back in 75, was he as cocky as his image, appeared to be?
No, I always found him to be a class guy. You just don't want to be around him when he gets the hives. He had to get shots every so often for this nervous, whenever he'd get skin or something real nervous that bothered him and itched. But other than that, he was extremely professional. He was always a gentleman with me. He was great to be around.
Yeah, and that was 75, and I believe the Athletics, they made it to first place in the West, right? They were in first place that year.
Correct.
Very nice. So then after your baseball career was over, so what did you do? What did you end up doing?
Well, I got tricked into selling life insurance, and I say that by being tricked. A friend of mine said, Bill, you can get in the life insurance business, and you can work from 9 in the morning, and you're off at 4 o'clock. Wrong. I've been in the insurance business now for almost 50 years. And I sold life insurance the first 2 or 3 years. Then I met a president of an insurance company, and we designed a life insurance product that really took off. And I went into management of life insurance. And I did that. I've been a vice president of 2 companies. And then I formed, in the year 2000, I formed my own insurance marketing company where I started then. I recruited agents for about 25 national life companies. So I had a lot of insurance agents under me as time went on. And that really grew and grew and grew to the point in time where now I'm going to be 79 next month. And I can't get myself to retire because it took too many years to build this thing up, and I don't want to quit. But anyway, I can still work 4 hours a day and nobody knows if I'm working 4 or 10.
Really impressive. I mean, do you still follow the game? Were you happy to see the Dodgers win it this year?
I was very happy that they won. They're not the same. It just seemed like do you ever remember the commercial? And this is back in the 60s or 70s. I don't know how old you are, but there was an Indian showing a picture of New York of litter around, and this Indian's crying when he sees all the litter. Well, I felt that way when I went back to an old-timers game, the Dodgers, about 20 years ago, and Dodger Stadium used to just be pristine. There was, other than the Union 76 sign in left field behind the stands for their lone gas station out there, there was no advertisements on any of the fences or anywhere other than Union 76. That was it. And when I went back and I start seeing red lines and lights going around the stadium, flashing around, then on the scoreboard they tell you when to clap. You know, that's real sad when it gets to the point in any sports where some machine has to tell you when to applaud rather than you doing it on your own because something happened. You applaud because something happened, not because, oh, let's clap, let's do the wave. And to me, with all those lights going around, it was like a circus. And I was really sad. I felt like crying compared to the old days. Dodger Stadium, whenever the O'Malley's had it, was pristine. You could eat off the floors down the corridors. If you dropped a hot dog, you could pick it up and eat it. It was so clean. Dodger Stadium was just not the same, and it was extremely disappointing to see me go back. But baseball is so different today. You know, you're talking with the salaries and everything else. And since '95, when they tightened the baseball, I call them hitting Titleists now. And I believe right. In 1995, they started tightening the ball when the number of home runs per game over doubled. That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean,
I'd hate to be a pitcher at that, unless you're a knuckleball pitcher or a fastball pitcher that can really throw like Nolan Ryan. You're not going to be in good shape.
Yeah, and Billy, unfortunately, they're telling me I'm out of time. I mean, it was really, you did a great job. It was fun talking to you. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome, sir. Y'all have a good day, and hello, everybody in L.A. Go Dodgers.
Thank you, Billy. We just heard from Billy Cordell Grabarkewitz. Until next week, happy collecting to all.